The conflict between Ukraine and Russia has escalated to new heights, with both countries deploying unprecedented numbers of drones in their ongoing struggle. Last night, Russia launched a staggering 145 drones toward Ukraine, marking the highest number of aerial attacks in a single day this year. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, the barrage inflicted widespread damage on Ukrainian infrastructure, severely impacting civilian areas and escalating the humanitarian crisis in the region. These attacks come on the heels of recent Russian airstrikes that killed at least 5 people in southern Ukraine, as confirmed by regional officials. The southern city of Zaporizhia also faced targeted strikes, resulting in 1 fatality and 18 injuries. In response to the intense aerial assault, Ukraine introduced preventive power cuts across multiple regions, including Kyiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv, and Donetsk. By cutting electricity in key regions, Ukrainian authorities aim to mitigate further risks to power infrastructure that could disrupt essential services, impacting millions of citizens. In a significant countermeasure, Ukrainian forces launched 96 drones across Russian territory, marking the largest drone assault on Russian soil to date. Moscow was notably impacted by this massive counterattack, with 6 Russian regions reporting damage and disruptions. Moscow's airports, including some of Russia's busiest hubs, were temporarily closed as a precaution. Russian media outlets reported that at least 5 people were injured in the drone strikes, highlighting the physical and psychological impact of the escalating warfare. Drone warfare, once a tactical asset for reconnaissance, has now become a primary tool for offensive operations on both sides. Amid the growing tensions, the Kherson region remains a key battleground. Russian troops have ramped up efforts to advance into the region, aiming to push Ukrainian forces out and establish a more robust front line. According to Ukrainian officials, Russian forces are now positioned just 3 kilometers from Kherson city center, which has already sustained extensive damage due to months of conflict. Kherson, located in a critical area bordering the Dnieper River, serves as a crucial location for controlling supply lines and facilitating troop movements, making it a prime target for Russian advances. The Russian Ministry of Defense recently confirmed that their forces have captured the village of Novoprokopivka, roughly 5 kilometers from the city of Makiivka. This capture, while relatively small in geographic terms, could signal a turning point in Russia's broader strategy to seize control of eastern Ukraine. Should Russian forces succeed in holding this position, it would grant them a foothold to potentially encircle other Ukrainian-controlled territories, complicating Ukraine's defense efforts. On the Ukrainian side, footage released from the Kharkiv region provides a stark glimpse into the reality faced by tank crews on the front lines. Ukrainian soldiers are seen positioning their tanks within the maximum effective firing range, preparing for direct engagement with Russian forces. Inside the tanks, the atmosphere is tense, with soldiers methodically aiming and loading ammunition. The calculated precision reflects the intense training and coordination of Ukraine's military personnel, who are under constant pressure to defend their positions against Russian advances. As tank crews focus on maintaining accuracy under duress, the footage highlights the human side of military engagements, where each action could determine the safety and success of entire platoons. In the contested regions of Ukraine, the stakes are high not only for strategic control but also for the lives of those on the front lines. One poignant example of heroism comes from Andriy Kretz, a Ukrainian volunteer from the Russian Volunteer Corps. Kretz recently attempted to rescue his wounded commander, identified by the call sign Kruger, who was injured during a fierce firefight. Despite relentless artillery fire from Russian drones, Kretz braved the battlefield in a determined effort to evacuate his commander. Tragically, both men were ultimately killed by a Russian barrage, underscoring the perils that Ukrainian volunteers face. The sacrifices of soldiers like Kretz serve as a reminder of the intense personal costs borne by individuals on both sides of the conflict. In another part of the Kherson region, Ukrainian forces have had success in repelling Russian troops, particularly Russia's 810th Marine Brigade. This unit has suffered extensive losses, reportedly nearing combat ineffective status due to repeated engagements with Ukrainian paratroopers. The resilience of Ukraine's 95th Separate Air Assault Brigade has proven to be a formidable challenge for Russian forces, showcasing the skill and determination of Ukraine's military despite facing a numerically superior enemy. In a separate operation, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces conducted a daring raid behind enemy lines in the Kherson region. Video footage from the SOF command shows soldiers infiltrating Russian positions with stealth, wearing camouflage cloaks to avoid detection. After a brief yet intense firefight, the Ukrainian soldiers neutralized 14 Russian combatants and captured 3 others. The operation highlights the adaptability and resourcefulness of Ukraine's special forces, who rely on a combination of commercial and military-grade drones to coordinate attacks, improve reconnaissance, and maintain an advantage in the field. The impact of the conflict extends beyond the battlefields, affecting civilians in Russian regions close to Ukraine. In the Kursk region, approximately 120 residents recently gathered in front of the local administration building in Kherson. The protesters demanded better living conditions and called for the evacuation of residents who remain in the embattled area. Frustrated by months of instability, these civilians expressed anger at the local administration, insisting that authorities recognize the hardships they've endured. Despite efforts by local officials to defuse the situation by inviting them for private negotiations, the protesters refused, leading to accusations of holding an illegal assembly. The protest highlights a growing rift between Russian civilians and their government, with some residents feeling abandoned amid the prolonged conflict. While the Russian government has yet to officially recognize the gravity of the situation in these border areas, the discontent underscores the broader societal impacts of the war. Ukrainian forces have recently launched operations in these regions, including an incursion in early August that captured over 1,300 square kilometers of territory, including the city of Sudzha. For residents in the Kursk region, the fear of being caught in the crossfire adds to an already challenging living situation, prompting calls for immediate government action. In Russia's Belgorod region, Ukrainian forces have intensified their use of kamikaze drones, targeting logistical support bases to disrupt Russian military operations. Recent reports from Telegram channels indicate that the 1,060th Material and Technical Support Base was hit by Ukrainian drones, resulting in explosions and fires. Belgorod's governor confirmed that 14 drones were intercepted, but falling debris still caused fires in a non-residential area, underscoring the difficulties of fully neutralizing drone threats. Although no casualties were reported, the disruption has raised concerns about the vulnerability of Russia's supply chains and infrastructure. The Belgorod drone attacks are part of Ukraine's larger strategy to weaken Russian capabilities by targeting supply bases, transportation hubs, and logistical centers. By undermining these support networks, Ukraine aims to strain Russia's ability to maintain its operations on the front lines. As drone warfare becomes an increasingly common tactic, both countries have invested heavily in drone technology, with Ukraine leveraging commercial drones for reconnaissance alongside military-grade models for offensive strikes. Outside of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, tensions in the Middle East have escalated significantly, with deadly airstrikes reported in both Lebanon and Gaza. Israeli forces launched airstrikes in northern Lebanon, killing at least 23 civilians in a densely populated area near Beirut. This strike follows a series of cross-border hostilities, raising fears of a broader regional conflict. The Lebanese Health Ministry has confirmed the death toll, with many of the victims believed to be civilians caught in the sudden onslaught. In Gaza, the situation is equally dire. The local civil defense agency reported that airstrikes destroyed 2 residential buildings, killing at least 30 people, including 13 children. In Gaza City's Sabra neighborhood, 5 more individuals were killed, with several others reported missing in the aftermath. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to deepen as airstrikes and retaliatory rocket attacks leave the population in dire need of assistance. Medical facilities in Gaza are overwhelmed, and infrastructure damage has further limited access to basic necessities, exacerbating the region's ongoing humanitarian disaster. The intensification of these conflicts across different parts of the world underscores the need for urgent international intervention. Drone technology, in particular, has reshaped the nature of warfare, allowing for more frequent targeted attacks that can bypass traditional defenses. As Ukraine and Russia continue to leverage drones for offensive operations, questions about the ethical implications and potential escalation risks of drone warfare have taken center stage. The widespread civilian impact of these conflicts, whether in Europe or the Middle East, highlights the far-reaching consequences of modern warfare. International organizations, including the United Nations and Red Cross, have called for ceasefires and diplomatic dialogue to address the root causes of these crises. However, achieving sustainable peace will require substantial commitments from global leaders. Beyond immediate conflict resolution, there is also a pressing need for new arms control agreements that consider the complexities of drone warfare and other emerging technologies. As the world grapples with multiple, overlapping crises, the call for cohesive, humanitarian-focused intervention has never been more urgent. The ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, Russia, and the Middle East paint a sobering picture of the global security landscape, where technology-fueled warfare poses unprecedented risks to civilians and infrastructure. The challenges are monumental, yet the path forward must prioritize peace and stability to prevent further loss of life and alleviate the suffering of those caught in the crossfire.